people make mistakes. That can be the next slogan for the next advertising campaign for Adidas. I came up with it myself, but if they want, they can have it. I'll sell it to them for a very low seven-figure amount. But yeah, that does seem to be kind of a theme with Adidas in recent years. People do make mistakes, but in Adidas's case, there's at least two of them, and they're very similar in that the mistake is advertising campaigns, the stars of which are anti-Semites. Now, again, even if it's the same person coming up with these campaigns and choosing who to cast for them, it might be a genuine mistake twice. I think still, if it is the same person, it's probably a fireable offense at this point. Um, but yeah, at some point you do start wondering, is it a genuine mistake, or is somebody, doing things their own way and hoping to get away with it behind the scenes in Adidas? The answers to those questions will not be given on this show because we have no idea, but we will discuss this interesting developments with Adidas. The latest campaign is a campaign around the Olympics. It's a retro campaign for the 1972 Olympics in Munich, where 11 Israeli Olympic delegation members were slaughtered by Palestinian terrorists, and yeah, they chose for that campaign Bella Hadid, who is a supporter of Palestinian terrorists, and an open supporter. She made excuses for even hostage takers and hostage takers of civilians, for those of you who think there's some distinction between civilians and soldiers. So yeah, really a despicable person in general, which one has to wonder, why would you want to work with somebody like that anyway? It doesn't have to be on a campaign that is specifically insensitive in this sense. Why would you want her on anything, considering that this is a part of her personal branding that she chose to associate herself with support for Palestinian terrorists? Welcome to the Daily Objective. Daniel, you only wear Adidas, is that correct?
Yes, Adidas is a proud sponsor of all the Slavic people, so I'm kind of gonna be here defending them, but and especially from the marketing standpoint. So I work for Ayn Rand Center UK. I schedule a lot of stuff. I have to, when we do marketing, I also figure out a lot of stuff there, and sometimes you do forget to check, like, okay, what day are we publishing this episode, what what people are we showing them, and sometimes you can get like this sort of like, oh, oops, we should have checked that. And I think it sort of seems like this is what happened, that they are doing the 82 Olympics retrospective. That terrible event happened there, and they hired not only just a Palestinian, but they hired someone who has been defending many violent actions of the Palestinians and have been anti-Semitic in the past. Um, so I I could imagine like a sort of like a I mean, so first of all, you made the right point. Like, why would you want to support work with Bella Hadid anyway? But even if we could put that sort of aside, it's still kind of tacky to like have someone who is Palestinian representing this sort of campaign when this sort of thing happen. Uh, so when I do it, when I do that mistake, it's bad, but it's sort of apologize. You can sort of like see it. I'm just one person. I cannot check like every single thing that happened in history. But with that, you would figure out they would have like a department for something like this. Like, okay, what are we actually doing? Are we doing something that's gonna, be like really basically tacky? Really, it's gonna give a really bad image to us. So that would be like my first problem. Like, does no one like check things like this? Does no one like actually check, okay, who are we putting on? What date are we doing? And is there anything bad that can come out of this? That would be like my sort of like a first question.
Yeah, and yeah, my comment, people make mistakes, was not, sarcastic. I think I've mentioned when we talk about President Biden in recent months that I have Biden moments pretty much on every show. In his case, the thing that was unique is he didn't have those Biden moments until recently, which is why I think people were worried. And but yeah, there's again, we go back to the point of in her case with Kanye, let's I think he was always it was kind of clear that he was off his rocker to some extent, but the campaign went on for years before he came out as a full anti-Semite, and then they fired him. So it's not exactly the same, but it is some sort of association that then they would have to kind of look at when looking into the future. And the thing with mistakes is hopefully you learn from them. And I don't know if that's the case in their case. So they had this campaign, then they decided to end it, then they apologized to anybody who was offended by it, and they apologized to Bella Hadid, who's suing them, from what I understand. So yeah, what exactly goes on there? Now, I have, and actually, I want to read here that Stedman says that, an Adidas marketing manager, it's not a real quote, as far as I know, but I was just doing my job as I was told. Yeah, yeah, by the way, I get the comparison, but it's not exactly like, Eichmann was saying, I was just following orders, in his trial. And in this case, no, there's no such excuse. Now, of course, Eichmann didn't have that excuse either and actually got the punishment he deserved, which is not what I'm saying should happen here. But yeah, you have to actively think about a campaign and come up with it. You're not you just doing your job in as a marketing manager is innovating. And this is the innovation uh, that they chose. And it makes me also think generally back to some other marketing campaigns that made headlines, and rightfully so, for being particularly bad in recent years. Of course, the famous one is Dylan Mulvaney and Bud Light, and people stopped basically drinking beer because they were drinking that brand of beer because they were insulted by it. There was the Gillette ad, the "Boys Will Be Boys" ad, where basically all men are evil, was the underlying message, which of course, you know, some of us stopped buying Gillette. This is how I got my beard, basically because of that ad. So I wonder, what they teach in marketing courses in university, and how much of the bad ideas in the culture, that some of the worst ideas in the culture, are influencing that.
Yeah, so you mentioned the Kanye situation, and so I think originally, so we had this topic in mind, I think for maybe a week or so, but we also discussed it yesterday, and yeah, my mind immediately went to Kanye, or yeah, now, because yeah, how you can excuse once if you like have an if you hire an anti-Semite, maybe especially I think with Kanye, I haven't followed him much before. I haven't even listened to much of his music, so I haven't really followed him much before. As you said, he sort of like came out as an anti-Semite. So I don't know if it ever was as clear as with Bella Hadid. So when I was thinking about it, I was thinking, oh, maybe they're learning. Maybe with Kanye, they knew about it before, but they canceled it later. With Bella Hadid, they only found out later. But no, it seems much worse in this case. Like with Kanye, one, you have that sort of like a mental aspect. He is, I think, bipolar to what I understand. So he has some like mental issues. So you could excuse it to some extent. But again, Adidas, I think did the, in a sense, right thing by getting rid of him after, yeah, everything he said. Now with yeah, Bella Hadid, I think from the start it seemed like I don't see any reason why to hire her, after everything you know about her. And I think it puts Adidas in a much worse light. When it comes to her suing Adidas for it, I mean, I guess that's just a legal issue. If they broke a contract, she might have a case, but unfortunately, and by unfortunately, what I mean, I think it's bad if someone like her comes out of this basically better off. Um, but I think in some sense, well, one, if there is a contract, you have to abide by it. But then I would sort of respect Adidas a bit more if they were willing to basically take a huge or take a hit to basically their finances to sort of, to not continue with this. But again, this whole thing is so weird. Like, we shouldn't have ever gotten to this point. She should never have been hired, and she definitely shouldn't have been hired for this specific, basically retrospective campaign.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Kanye in the past, I wasn't following him closely, but from time to time he would make headlines because of just how, yeah, he went full Kanye more recently, but he's always been problematic, or at least, was never playing with a full deck. Um, yeah, Unicorn says, I just love that beard backstory. Thank you. I have to say it's not a not a true story, but it's a good one anyway. WUB says, I think their campaign worked. Just saying, look, it depends. I don't know if you want to appeal more to people who are more likely to buy your product rather than, steal it. I'm not sure that's the case. Yeah, I don't know. Generally speaking, you know, uh, corporations are a part of the culture and they do follow behind kind of academia and the media and so on. And yeah, they're doing what they're supposed to do, which is to appeal to those who think they have no right to exist, that they're evil by their very existence. And that is the case with people on the left and the right who will appreciate them bringing on somebody at a time when she is making her brand about Jew hatred. So yeah, we'll see. This is not as clear cut as Dylan Mulvaney or Gillette, because there is a widespread appeal to the idea of hating Jews. But is it widespread enough that this is gonna actually benefit them? We will find out. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, something you mentioned earlier is the fact that Adidas has apologized to Bella Hadid for this, which I think is the most, probably the worst part of this. Like, uh, I mean, again, if you hired her for this, and now you basically backed off of this because of the backlash. The backlash is because of her. The backlash is because of who she is. Why are you apologizing to her? She is the, in a sense, problem in this. Uh, like, what is the apology for? In a sense, sorry, we didn't check you're anti-Semitic, and we hired you without like checking that. Like, what is the apology for? Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah.
we bring this up frequently and we'll continue to bring it up frequently, that with every such instance of anti-Semitism, and how even when it's frowned upon, but you have to bring up other forms of bigotry and ask, would this be the same if they hired a white athlete or a white model for the for this advertising campaign, and then they praised some white supremacist group who decided to, I don't know, kill black kids or something like that. How, would they would presumably end the campaign as well. Would they apologize to the white supremacist? I don't think they would. And I don't think they would if it was any other race, if it was any other gender, if it was a man who said, women should not be allowed to vote or whatever things offend people nowadays. Um, well, that is actually offensive, but whatever is overly offensive beyond what people are offended by nowadays. So yeah, this is Bella Hadid on the one hand is a bigot, and this is why this campaign can continue. On the other hand, she's a bigot of the kind that we have to accept. It's so widespread in the culture that yeah, we get it, but we don't want to take sides on the anti-Semitic. There's a context, as was famously said in those hearings in Congress.
Yeah, so some people in the chat are wondering why would Adidas pick specifically the 72 Munich Olympics. And I'm trying to remember how many Olympics were actually in Germany, because Adidas is a German-based company. And if you're gonna do a retrospective, the 72, do you know how many there were? I know of two. Were there more?
There was 72, there was 36.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
probably a better pick. It's
Yeah.
still a it's
Neither
still
one, yeah, neither one of them is fondly remembered. And so they were only doing this retro campaign. They were not doing any others.
I like currently or
Yeah.
like before this.
I mean, currently this is the only retro campaign they're doing.
I believe so.
So that alone is also interesting. And it's a campaign, is it a campaign only in Germany? Is that the issue there? Because then why
Well, I
pick
would.
Bella Hadid?
So the reason, if I were to like make, the best case, sort of scenario, why they would do this specifically is that it's a German-based company, and they, in a sense, want to celebrate or sort of bring a retrospective to two Olympics that happened in Germany. And I think there's no way you could do 36. I think there's so many issues with doing that retrospective that I don't think you could.
There's the positives in 36. I mean, one of the most memorable things is Jesse Owens, winning the gold medal in front of not so happy Hitler, seeing a black man win, in his Olympics. Um, so yeah, you could take the positive, but again, probably not what you want to choose. Yeah,
So
look,
yeah, maybe that's how it went down. Maybe that's how the marketing mistake would happen. They were like, okay, guys, I think you have this like executive or something. He doesn't know any history or anything. So we should do Olympics that were in Germany. We should do a retrospective. And they were so focused on not doing the one on 36 that they forgot to check anything that happened in 72, and just went with it. It's like the best case scenario I could make for it. But again, like how the question would be, how did we get here? Because again, I don't, and I've seen some people in the comments making, well, of course they do it. It's a German-based company. Who was it founded by? All German companies were founded by Nazis. And again, I think that's a bit of a stretch. I don't think all German companies are automatically anti-Semitic. Um,
yeah, it's a bit of a stretch, and unlike North Korea, where like three generations down, you're responsible for the treason of your grandfather because they wanted to escape North Korea or something. Yeah, I don't think the West should take that approach. Even if your grandfather was a senior Nazi official, that's not a reason to condemn you. And a company that may have been any company that exists now, that existed during Nazi Germany, would have been somehow involved. Otherwise, they wouldn't be allowed to exist. That's true. But yeah, I wouldn't blame the people today. Thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. Yeah, so a point that I wanted to make, and there's a point here in the chat that kind of leads into it. Yeah, Purple Pulp says, you said earlier, it's their job to be innovative. So their way of being that is to take something from 50 years ago. Look, a marketing campaign that's retro at a time when it's relevant. The Olympics are happening. They happen every 4 years, although it's been 3 years since the last one. And so that's not that bad. But yeah, you could say, you know, in brainstorming ideas, you can come up with a lot of ideas that might sound good to begin with, or at least in your head, and then you realize the problem with them. So yeah, if you say, well, we're a German company, let's do a retro campaign for when the Olympics were in Germany. It's not just 1936 that has a bad stigma. Many people think of the 1972 Munich Olympics and think of the massacre of the Israeli delegation. That is what that is associated with. So there's no positive association really, by and large of any either of these two Olympics. And so either do, yeah, futuristic, next time, third time's a charm, or yeah, let's do something about the next time some city in Germany hosts the Olympics, or let's do something else. The retro campaign was an interesting idea. Then we thought it through. Then we decided not to do it. That would have been that's part of how innovation works. You come up with something that you think is good, then you realize actually it's crap.
Yeah, so I checked just to make sure, and yeah, it was only Berlin in 36 and Munich in 72. So these were the only Olympics in Germany. So maybe, yeah. So basically, just to cover uh something more is, so they basically pulled this campaign. Adidas did pull the campaign, I think, last Friday, and so they told the NBC News that it was revising the remainder of the campaign. And they've also said, we are conscious that connections have been made to tragic historical events, though these are completely unintentional, and we apologize for any upset or distress caused. Um, so yeah, I don't think I have much to say. Maybe just to sum it up is, yeah, again, like, don't you have like a department for this? Don't you have like someone, checking things like these? Uh, while I don't want to automatically like assume, the whole company is anti-Semitic, or the someone who designed the campaign is anti-Semitic, you have so many like of these things uh that it makes you think, like, what happened? Is this like an actual complete failure? And again, is someone going to be responsible for this at Adidas? Is, like you said at the start, maybe it wasn't the same person who did Kanye and who did now Bella Hadid. But if it was, you might be you might be thinking like, okay, you know, I think someone said it in the chat: three stripes, three strikes, and you're out.
Yeah, I mean, look, yeah, we mentioned here at ARCUK, we do 12 shows a week, and that's just the stuff that's not behind a paywall. And, we make mistakes, and I don't think we make mistakes at that level, but we look at each other's stuff, or try to before it goes out. Yeah, in Adidas, they have, I'm sure, at least dozens of times as many people as we have at ARCUK looking at everything. Certainly a campaign like that is, I'm sure, in the many, many millions. I don't know what her fee is, but it could be in the millions on its own, right? So yeah, they, there's it's difficult to come up with an excuse for them. I want to say that, there's also, again, within a company that big, somebody said, I think, I'm not buying Adidas anymore. I wouldn't go that far, although I don't
It's all
buy
my
their stuff
clothes.
anyway. What?
It's all my clothes.
Yeah, yeah, and again, like I wouldn't go that far. But because somebody in a company could come up with stuff. You especially see this with Twitter, or people who run companies' social media platforms or accounts. And there was the one with Delta. Uh, about a month ago, somebody took a picture of on a Delta Airlines flight, of one of the flight attendants with a PLO flag, lapel pin. And so they tweeted at Delta, you know, I remember 9/11. How would you feel if you were on a plane and you saw somebody supporting terrorism? And the Delta account replied with, I completely agree with you, or something to that effect. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not okay for somebody to do this. And Delta then said whoever tweeted that was removed from their post, which I thought that was a shame. Yeah, but again, that caused some problems. Delta decided that you can no longer wear a lapel with any flag other than the US flag, which is also a bit cowardly, but probably better for the bottom line. Um, and yeah, so people within a company, for better or worse, will do things that may not be entirely um, company policy and shouldn't necessarily be blamed on the company. That the fact that that tweet by Delta happened isn't a reason for me to now fly just Delta. The fact that they fired the person isn't a reason for me not to fly Delta. We'd be very it would be very difficult to buy anything ever if we were gonna do it based on anybody we don't like in any given company. Yeah. Final
Yeah,
thoughts?
maybe to do a quick ARCUK retrospective. I remember where there was a it was called Twitter at that time. There was a Twitter exchange between again someone from Amazon social media and Elizabeth Warren, and I think we did an episode on that. And yeah, that one was fantastic because it was something like Elizabeth Warren message posting something like, Amazon pays no tax, and the Amazon official replied, "Well, we are just complying with the law. If you want us to pay tax, change. No, we are complying with the law you've written. If you want to change the tax code, do it, and we'll comply with the law." And she again replied something like, "If I get into power, I will like no company should be able to say something like that to a US
To
official."
harass a US senator or something to that
Yeah,
effect.
yeah. And then I think the reply was perfect. Like, this is a politician threatening a private company. And yeah, those exchanges were great, and I really hope
Yeah.
they didn't
That
do
last
anything.
tweet, I don't remember if it was on a Friday or we just saw it on a Friday. And at the time, the daily objective was 5 times a week. It was weekdays only. And I remember calling Raka, who was a co-host at the time, and getting in touch with Greg Salmieri, asking them if they're available on Saturday to do a special show, both because this was big news and because I was worried that by Monday, when the next scheduled show is going to happen, whoever tweeted that is going to be fired. Luckily, I think Amazon stood by that, and yeah, that was a good moment. Yeah, interesting things happened on social media, which was a good reason to follow Ayn Rand Center UK on Twitter or X. Um, all right,
Uh, just
yes,
maybe so people can find it. It's the daily objective 210. You should be able to search as Amazon Ayn Rand Center UK and find it.
and
And we
yeah.
have the reality show.
Yeah, and we encourage people to watch that in an hour and 2 minutes after today's episode of the reality show, where we will be talking about how libertarians in the US are standing with the Palestinians. And we're not just talking, speaking of social media accounts, we're not just talking about the New Hampshire Libertarian Party, one of the most despicable accounts on all of Twitter, up there with Ayatollah. But yeah, we're talking about, libertarians who write whole essays and are published in Time. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you on the reality show in a couple minutes.